Recording is on.
So thank you for joining this. I think it's the first official workshop of the second Designathon here. Thank you so much for joining here. This one will be about Penpot. It's going to be very casual. It's going to be interactive. So the first thing I wanted to do actually is make sure that I get your emails and invite you to a Penpot team so we can all get in the tool and we can all mess around. And so you can get super hands-on. And that will just take a minute. I don't know if you want to share it in the chat. I was going to share the Google Doc. Uh, yeah, okay. Okay. Well, for anyone else, I'm going to share a Google Doc here real quick, and you can uh, put it in there, or share it in the chat if you're comfortable doing that too. Um, so, in my background, I'm going to quickly switch over here to a Penpot team that I've prepared, and I'll just invite everyone, and then we can get that going. Eric, send invite. Katie, got the email address. Cool. Got 2 invites sent. I see someone typing their email address in the Google Doc. And I'll remove those afterwards before I post this, so it should also be good. Cool. I'm going to send that 3rd email here. I see people hopping in. See some cursors there. Cool. So if anyone else wants to put there, okay, I see one more email. I'm going to add that one in. All right. So I think everyone's going to hop in. So, but quick question. Does everyone know what Penpot is? Have you heard of it before? Mm-hmm. So for anyone who doesn't know, it is, if you know Figma or Sketch or the Adobe XD that has been discontinued since, it is a screen design tool, basically. So it is not a general purpose design and illustration tool. If you look at the homepage, I think it's pretty clear about what it is. It's about to bring design and code for products, digital products, and put that all in one to really improve that workflow. And you can also tell the differentiator here, a big one, is that you can see a link to GitHub. And you see a button that says self-host install. So unlike the other tools, Penpot is open source, which we like around here. So if you want to run it on your private server, you can totally do that. That's part of the deal. If you find a bug in it and you want to fix it, you can go in and fix it. The team is very community oriented. I've met some of those people, been in contact with them a little bit. They've also taken some feedback from this design community previously. So they're very responsive and friendly. They have this online community that you can chat for. And on top of it, they're also sponsoring some swag for the open design track for the Designathon. So what it means, so some particular things around this, I think the website makes good points here. So design is expressed as code. So when you design something in the interface, it's already expressed as code, which then makes it easier for the developers to kind of take it. With vibe coding, things are changing a little bit, but this is still a really important thing that we might also later see with their design token feature. So it breaks down those barriers. You can do your screen design, interface design. With interface design, it's always important to have super flexible layouts. With flat design, a lot of screens these days are very simple, but they're very dynamic, right? They move. You go very quickly between different screens. Modals slide up, disappear again. The screens come in 1,000 different sizes. They have to be very responsive. So there's a lot of layout-related features baked in. And then all of that flexibility. Let's say you have a light mode, dark mode. You can set up all these. You can make everything really, really dynamic, which is cool. You got prototyping, you got your code inspections, and this whole thing is based on open standards as well, which allows for totally blanking. Like you can tie things in with other tools. Interoperability, yes. which is actually kind of a tricky topic in design. I think maybe designers are not that great at it. So if you want to now hop into the tool, you've probably already gotten an email in your inbox that you can just click and then join. So I'm going to hop over here. Let me switch my background again. So are you in there? I see Eric. I see like in that little corner button in the top right corner, you can see people. Can I have an invitation again? No problem. I'll send that once more. Let me just copy your email address. Same email, I assume. Cool. Send. So it helps me if you give me a little bit of feedback of how familiar you are with this stuff, because we can go over the complete basics, kind of how the layout works, or we can dig into some of the things that make Penpot a little bit more unique. So as you probably also know from other tools like Figma or so, you create a file, you share a link, you can invite people. You very quickly run into kind of the paid features. So that's the good thing here. There are no paid features. Everything, so Penpot has fewer features than some other tools because they're still like several years younger and they're a much smaller team. But they're making good progress, and everything that you get is completely free. So you can just use everything. You don't have to worry about any like, pay 30 bucks per month buttons, which some other tools have. So it's structured in teams, and in teams you have projects, you have drafts, you have libraries. Libraries are great for reusable elements that you use across many different files. And here, if we look, I'm here in my workshop team now. I can see looks like I have no more pending invitations. Looks like they were all accepted here. And then here's this draft file that I created. You can create sub-projects too. They have libraries and templates. So for example, if you just want to get quickly started with, let's say, a font awesome or icons, or there's a library with wireframes, you just want to plug these in, you can also do that right from the interface. Hopping in here real quick. Where is everyone? I don't see any cursors there. I see Yashrar's cursor. Awesome. Yashrar, why don't you draw us a button? You can also tell me if you, there we go. Okay. So I always find the interesting thing with these screen design tools is that you actually have very few tools. You have text, you have so you have some shapes like square, rectangle, triangle, these types of things. You have groups and like containers, and that's almost it, right? You place some icons in here, you add fill colors, outlines, but there really isn't a ton else. You can do a lot with a pen. We can just draw dynamic shapes, but what makes it so powerful is the combination of all of these different things. So I've seen Yashash here create he's working on a board. Board is that's what they call it, basically the most basic container. So anything when, let's say, you draw a screen on the screen on the canvas, you're probably going to make it a board. Here we go. Yeah, so I'm also gonna do one here. So what I would do is I press this frame feature here, place a frame. Text layer keeps moving out of the board area. Interesting. And then I'll press T and put a little text field in there. And then the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to add a layout to this one. So in the right side, so that's one of those powerful layout things. On the right side, in about the center of the sidebar, you see layout, and you can press a little plus button here. And there are two types of layout, flex and grid. Flex is when you have like several things in a row, horizontally or vertically, and grid is when you have like multiple columns, like a table or so. So I'm going to do a flex layout. So that means now that anything in this container, I'm not going to manually position it, right? The container will has layout rules that apply to everything inside of it. So let's take a look. So for example, you can see right now the button here is always in the top left here, the text label. But I have these layout control buttons here on the right. So if I want it, in different places, I can just adjust that. So now it's set that the container always stays the same size, and you just kind of let it control what's inside of it. The other way to do it is that what's the content defines the size of the container. So I'm going to switch to that. For that, you have these in the sidebar, these flex board buttons, and they're currently set to fixed for me. So I'm going to make them to fit content. There you go. And now if I change the text of the button, the container grows along. So sounds pretty simple, but you can someone messing with my button here. But if you combine that, you can make very complex layouts that are basically like websites where tons of elements start, where everything is responsive and elements react to each other and also to their own content. How's everyone doing? Oh, it'd be nice. We got Eric's button with the gradient here. We got a white button over here with border radius, blue one with the border radius. So here, this is interesting. So 3 years ago, the Penpot was not quite yet publicly launched. So there were several bugs where sometimes we had to refresh because cursors got lost and things got out of sync a little bit. I think we're better here. Is it working well for everyone? Yeah, zooming in and out, I actually messaged them about that. So that's a caching issue. That's something that they're working on. Because at different zoom levels, they cache the graphics. And sometimes like an older cache is not updated. So you still kind of see an older frame. So I'm going to give my background here also a color. I'm going to make it bright pink here for no reason. I'm going to make my text a little bit bigger. 21. Source Sans Pro sounds good. I'm gonna, let's see, 15 and 20. Give it a proper label here. Button. Cool. Why is my button so long now? Flex element. Cool. My button's weird now. Seems like something's going on with my text field here. Okay, I'm going to give it a fixed. Oh, that's weird. Oh, there's some weird stuff happening with this one. Okay, cool. I'm going to make a new text field. Kill my old one. So the next thing, this is kind of weird here. My button's not resizing to its content. Okay, that works. This is what I need. Okay. So the next thing that I wanted to go over is a component. Actually, let's do something else first. So something that they introduced only recently, which is really cool. In the top left corner, you're going to see three. You're going to see three tabs, and let's click on one called tokens. So this is one of the powerful things that really connects design and code. When you're in code, almost every color, every spacing, every font family, font size, all these things, they're usually expressed as a variable. So you might say spacing big, spacing medium, spacing small, or color red, color green. So as a developer, you just say, I want to use a green color. And then there's one central place where all these variables are defined. So tools like Tailwind or Material Design, they can export, like they have very specific naming conventions for all of these variables. So you can export those. There are standards for exporting all those variables. And then Penpot can import those. And then you can modify them in Penpot. You can export the changes again, put them in your code library, and then the developers don't even have to worry about it, right? They just get the latest changes and all the layouts, all the colors, everything should adjust. So I'll show you an example here of how this works. I'm gonna create a border radius. No, let's create a color variable. I'm gonna call it button.background, and I will make it here this orange. I didn't apply the color for some reason. Give me that orange here. Orangish. Here we go. Then I'm going to select this button, press the variable, and now it's applied. So I can draw another rectangle. I can apply the color there. I can draw another one, apply the color there. And then if I ever change that variable, I can right-click on, press Edit Token. Right, then I'm going to make it blue. And then all those colors are going to update. And now you can do the same with, let's say, border radius. I'm going to create a border radius variable. I'm going to call it button dot. I'll just call it button dot radius. It has to be lowercase and dots. I'm going to make it 15. I'm going to select my button here, give it that border radius, button radius. So if I ever change my mind, I want it to be 500 for pill buttons, I can do that. So this is super useful if you have a pretty big website set up or a more complex system, that you get the flexibility where you don't have to go through every single thing and just keep changing stuff all over the place. And there's an additional thing. So if you look at that sidebar, you're also going to see sets and themes. Now this sounds a little bit complicated, but it all kind of makes sense. So let's say a set can be a combination. It's like a grouping of tokens. So let's say you have a certain group of colors or all your font settings or your spacing. You have 3 different types of spacing for left, for right, for kind of stuff. You put them all in a set, then you might have like the tight spacing set, or you might have the big spacing set. And then you can say, well, right now I want to use the big spacing, or right now I want to use the small spacing. And then you might have another set, which is, let's say, your sans serif, thick or fonts, and you have another set with like a very delicate type of font. So you have different sets for fonts, right? And then you have different sets for padding. And a theme is is combination of those. So you can say, I want to have my really bright group of bright colors with a really big spacing and my very delicate font. And then whenever you switch between those, all the layout, everything's just going to update. And it's all, so that's super, super powerful. It does require you to work in a very structured way, though. So if you like place everything manually, then it's just not going to work. So when you structure something, you're really gonna have to set up. You're really gonna have to set things up in this very kind of modular, organized way. If that makes sense. All right. Hey, Desiree. Thanks for joining. So are there any questions about this stuff so far? So so you cannot share. So this view here, you cannot share. However, you can On the top right corner, you see a view mode, which for me just opens a new window, which you do not see. But if you press it, so it's basically you can there's like a prototype view in a way, and you can share that one freely. For if you want people to be part of to see the actual canvas here, then you have to invite them as and you can invite them as viewers. So in the top right corner, you can say you can invite people as admins, editors, or as viewers. Mhm. So partially, I think. So I think there were some attempts at. I think there have been Figma import tools. The one that I tried, the one that I tried a long time ago, was not that great. But I feel like the Penpot team created another one that was better. But I haven't checked it in a while. So you may want to check on it. I know there are some possibilities there, but I'm not uh, on top of how good those are, or just yeah, how complete they are basically. There's another question here. Exporting SVG in Figma and importing in Penpot also works. Yeah, yeah. With SVG, you're gonna have to reset up all your components and everything. But I'm not sure how much. Uh, yeah, but that might be okay. Then there was Yasha. She had a text layer keeps moving out of the board. Yeah, I feel like we're overwhelming it a little bit with having 5 people in here. That is one of the things that the Penpot team is very aware of those performance issues, and they're working hardcore on completely redoing this rendering engine. So the whole canvas that you see, the way it's displayed, is based on open standards in the browser. But they realize that it's just not good enough for the performance that they want. So they're switching to what other people's also do. It's like a custom canvas renderer with, I don't know, WebGL and WASM or WebAssembly in the background or so. So they've been working on that for some time. I think it's going to come out this year, but that should really resolve all of these performance issues. They especially if, let's say, you drag in a huge like 10 megabyte PNG or so, you're also going to notice the performance. So you're going to have to be a bit gentle on it. So I think a great way to use Penpot right now is for something like the Designathon, where you're going to spend 2 weeks on a new project. You're not going to build, well, you don't really build like this super incredible complex design system that that you're going to use for the next 5 years. But just start with something, start with sketches, start with smaller project, with some explorations, and kind of make yourself comfortable. And then get a feel for what the benefits are over other tools, how you like it, and just keep revisiting it, this thing as these tools evolve. That's how I would think about it. So we have some buttons here. I was also going to go over components. Everyone familiar with that? Looks like there's some good knowledge here already about Penpot. Auto layout icons. Yeah, the auto layout icons. Yeah, sure, to your point. So if you're familiar with web development and flex layouts, then that logic takes a while to get used to, but it's actually very powerful. Well, once it's in your head, and you can make some really cool, super complex layouts. But yeah, it definitely takes tinkering.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ooh, what happened there? Huh, is this working all right here? Trying to stack a few things. It's expanding to the height here. Let's give a fixed one. I actually don't want a fixed height here. I want it to fill the height of the content. Anyone know what's going on with this one here? I'm just trying to set the text field so it height 100%. I don't want that. I don't want a fixed height. But that might be so. That is another tricky thing. Um, justify content space around. Okay, that makes a ton of sense. Justify content center. Justify content start. Yeah. So that is another tricky thing about Flexbox. So um, you can have the container decides the container setting decides how the layout of the children behaves. Like the container might say, okay, everything inside of me has 20 pixel spacing between them, and then they're gonna just adjust and try to fill the remaining space. And then the individual sub element can override those rules. Like one element can say, well, I always want to be 100 pixel tall. And then that infects the layout above it, where let's say, well, if the buttons say, I always want to be 50 pixels tall, the container says, well, we have 10 pixels between each element, then that's going to mean that the text field automatically then fills the rest of the height. So totally it all makes sense. It's all logical. But it is a bit of a brain twister sometimes. But I do think it's something really super important to kind of wrap your head around and become familiar with. Yeah, it totally is. I totally understand why a lot of people hate CSS, but and there's a steep learning curve because like you write stuff and then things happen on the screen and it's kind of hard to rationalize sometimes. But when you get it, it is really super powerful. Um, let's see, can I figure this one out? Let's add some more spacing here at the top. I want more spacing on the left and right. Ooh, that doesn't seem quite right here. All right, fills the available space. Cool. Let's add some spacing in between the elements. And put this text field in its own corner with its own layout. Let's see what happens here. I'm still not quite sure about this text field here, about text field sizing. I might have to do this one here. That's probably how you do it. And then if I change the height of the container, stuff happens. The buttons adjust pretty well. Yeah, and then imagine building a bunch of um, tokenizing this whole thing, and you have something pretty. You can make some cool stuff. Something else I wanted to get into that was these assets here. So in the top left, so you can build all your components and colors and type all these things. You could also install these libraries. I'm going to add the design system example library here. Now we have the Penpot design system version 2.1. So we're going to get like what I didn't build here. Basically, we're going to get that through this library. So I just added it. So now if I look at my assets tab over here, I have my local library, and I have the Penpot design system. And in here, I have 376 components, which is a ton of stuff. So let's say we want, let's see, what do we have on the dashboard here? So I can just drag all these different components onto the screen here. So if I, let's say, want something, this is like what you see from the actual Penpot application itself. So these are the components that they use. Or I want a comment component. You know, all of this stuff is super dynamic here. So that's where you kind of get a feel for a well-structured component library here. You have all the different icons, workspace buttons seem to be a little bit different here. Yeah, so if you use something like that, that's a pretty good starting point. Let's also grab the wireframe library. Wireframing kit. Cool. You're also welcome to grab things and just play around with those. Just hop in the sidebar, go to assets, grab some components. Let's see, what do we have in this this one here? We got a basic, we got some tabs. All right, I got tabs here, menu item 1 and 2. Let's see, we have headers. What type of headers we have? Okay, this seems pretty good for putting together some mobile apps, some mobile wireframes. We want an avatar. Okay, we got a little bit of avatar card here. If I want to make a contact list or so, I can do that. Now we got whole devices here. Let's take a look at that. Oh, we're still getting some artifacts here, huh? Let's take a look over here. All right. Yeah, these icons, you really have to study them here. That's, I think that's pretty normal. Let's see, justify content space evenly, justify content space around. Let's do a space between. Okay, that makes sense. Let's see, these three, these have their own layout. So I want it to fit the whole width of the container. All right. I want the children to stretch. Justify content. Well, I want spacing to be just 25 here, and I want 20 pixels on the left and right. And let's pick those children here. Avatar grid. I want those to stretch. Width 100. Cool. Ah, seems like content of those background doesn't quite do that by itself, huh? I see. Oh, interesting. Yeah, not so easy with this layout stuff. Yeah, yeah, we also have this. I don't know what's going on. I wonder if these components are just not properly set up. Or maybe I broke them. Because let me take a look at this menu here again. Maybe I didn't grab it all the way. We grab one of these. Let's say I change it. Okay, that reacts pretty as it should. It looks good. Okay, let me throw that one here in this container. Okay, that's better. Cool. So I must have broken the previous one somehow. Just going to delete that. Ah, looks like something got messed up here. Look at that. I wonder when that happened. Yeah, that's okay. So it works if I manually adjust it. But let's say I have the. Yeah, okay, here we go. All right, interesting. How are you doing, Veronica? Oh, okay, you're getting busy here with the tabs and toggles. Yeah, so this would be. So I did a presentation in Penpot at the FOSS Backstage, and it worked. It worked pretty great. The one thing that I noticed was I did have to trim my images to the right size before I imported them. Otherwise, it would slow down the performance. But for a presentation, for slides, it worked pretty great. And if you haven't seen, so I'm gonna. Penpot also has prototyping tools. So in the top right corner, you can switch from design to prototype to inspect. I'll just go over inspect real quick. So if you're a developer, you want to rebuild this button here in CSS or so, you can just click it. You see the dimensions. You can see on the right side. You can see font family, text transform, all these details. You can also directly grab CSS code and HTML, or you can get it as an SVG. So lots of options there. Super convenient. And in prototype, you might be familiar with that one too. From other tools, you can just select, like, let's say, when I press this receive button, I want it to go to this other screen. I just drag a noodle over here to the other box. So now when I click the receive button, the prototype will transition to this other screen. In the top right corner, I can change the logic here. I can say if it should be a click, if it should be a navigation, or if it should be more like an overlay that slides up, or maybe I wanted to go to a completely external website. There's a destination. Okay, that's just a group that's going to, and you can set up an animation too. If I could maybe slide in or push the previous screen out or overlay it, all of this stuff. And that worked really great for the FOSS Backstage presentation. That was super cool to be able to do that. So like I mentioned earlier, I think definitely give Penpot a try with a smaller project, and I think you're gonna like it. Control Z does not work if there's option in the top left menu. What does Control Z do? Ah, okay, yeah, okay. Ah, yeah, gotcha. Oh, so with Bitcoin design systems, so yes, if you go to Bitcoin UI kit, totally mention that. I'm gonna pull that up real quick. Let's find my browser, switch to that one. Yeah, so here, if you're in the bitcoinuikit.com, some of this UI kit is available as Penpot. I have not checked it on it. This was done by a separate group. Here on the, if you go to the info page, you can find those files that were created. There were two of them were created, one by CipherStack, one by Ben Hamilton. I don't think they're maintained. Yeah, not touched since 2 years. Not touched since 2 years. Yeah. So design tokens did not exist 2 years ago. Flex layout didn't, and grid layout. I'm not. Maybe the Flex auto layout existed, but grid didn't exist 2 years ago. So you're not gonna with those 2-year-old libraries. You're not gonna get those features. But hey, better than nothing. It's a very good starting point, and maybe you can add all those layouts to it wherever you need it. Yeah, cool. Anything else you want to see in here? Oh, plugins. It also has plugins. Um, let me see. I actually made a plugin. Let me see if I can pull it up here. Plugins. You have a whole plugins manager here. This is also something very new. So since the last workshop, really Penpot has done a ton of stuff. They rolled out. They had their plugins beta recently. I don't know, last year. I participated in that beta, and I created this day and night plugin here. So I'm just going to open that real quick. So this is like a little plugin. So what it does is it creates a color palette in the file for you. So let's say, uh, um, so here in our, where am I? In my local library, there should now be a bunch of colors. So this plugin sets up colors for you. So you can see in the sidebar, there are 10 neutral colors and 10 or so colors that cover kind of the rainbow. And then if I use those, if I apply those colors, I'm just going to apply them to the screen here. So I'm going to give that the neutral background. I'm going to give these buttons here. I'm going to give this teal color, this text. I'll make that much bigger. 120. Oh, that was way too much. 100. I'm going to make that purple. So now, if my little day and night plugin, I can switch it from a light mode to dark mode. So I'm just going to press it, and it switches between the two themes in here. One is the light, and one is the dark. So this was just like a fun exploration to build like a plugin that was just, I don't know, more playful, I guess. So now with design tokens, you wouldn't actually build things that way, right? You would. This is a little bit hacky in the sidebar. It kind of has these main colors, and then it has these separate color sets that it then replaces the main colors with. Now you would actually properly do that with design tokens and design token sets. But before design tokens were announced, which was just, I don't know, maybe a month ago or so, that's when you would have done, a plugin like this would have kind of been handy. So yeah, I put a button in there to clear the color palette as well. So now it's all gone. Yeah, some pretty cool plugins here as well. There's plugins manager. Let's go to the plugins page. Let me try to pull that one up. Penpot plugins. And those are also pretty much community provided. So there's a whole information here how you can create a plugin. I think it would be cool to maybe create some Bitcoin related plugins or so. Um, what do we have here? We have accessibility, content, design systems, image editing, productivity, color styles to JSON. That seems kind of design token oriented, flattened text, turn text into editable vector paths, placeholder images, material theme. Okay, if people use material. QR codes can also be pretty handy. Squircles, you can make waves. You can make kittens. How about how about we add some kittens? Okay, I'm gonna try this one. Okay, cool. So let's try. All right, let's try the kitten plugin here. What do we have? We have a cat. We have a credit card. What do we want? Ice cream. Okay. Mood. Excited, happy, shocked. Cool. So what do I do with this now? I press a plus button? Nice. Yeah, so it's exactly what I've always wanted in my designs. There we go. That's funny. But yeah, it's all communicated stuff. Anything you want to do, it is open source. It's free for all. So maybe I don't know. Maybe you have some good ideas how to tie that into your Designathon project. So we have about 10 minutes to go. Do you have any more questions? Anything you'd like to see or go over, or can you? I'm also curious. Can you see yourself using Penpot for certain things? I know we had some performance and rendering problems in here, but it's probably okay if you're just kind of working in there by yourself or maybe with two people or so. Any thoughts? Quiet group. All right. From Oh, why do you think it would be time consuming? Yeah. Mhm. Did you? Yeah, I mean that's absolutely valid. Have you tried it before, or was today your first time? Mhm. Yeah, yeah. Hmm. 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 It's totally valid. I've also, I would love to have an open source design tool, but I've also not switched. Oh, this is probably your button over here, V button. Yeah. Let's see. Maybe we can figure that out. So yeah, it's totally valid. You know, I think they have a lot here already. I think it's a great team. They're working on improving the performance by completely redoing their rendering engine. Um, I just like to champion them because I really want them to get there. I really want there to be a great open source tool where we can even host a separate instance for the Bitcoin design community. We can have conversations with them. Like they're very friendly. Like you can talk to them in the community, and they're responsive. Like it's a very different relationship with a team like that, with a product like that, than let's say with some of the bigger ones who maybe care more about the big enterprise clients. So I really want them to succeed. But yeah, right now, like I said, maybe use it for smaller projects for the moment. So let's see if we can figure out this button here. So it is two lines. Let's take a look. So the button itself, it has a flex layout applied. The align items start. Okay, we have a row. Justify content start. That means the content's at the beginning. Okay. Yeah, in the flex board, we have a fixed width. So the container says I have a fixed width, right? The content inside of me needs to adjust. I'm going to change that to fit content. Nothing changed. All right, there must be something, something else there. Let's take a look. Let's find out. Okay, so let's take a look at what the element says. It says it itself has a fixed width. I can also set it to a width of 100%. See what that does. Doesn't do anything. Okay. Let's see what this here is. Vertical margin, horizontal margin. Aha, here in the right side, let's try this one. So in the sidebar on the right side, under the text header, there's also layout stuff for the text, for this text rectangle. And it's set to fixed. I'm going to set that to auto width. All right, now we have a single line. However, the container still hasn't reacted to it. Let's see what happens. Okay, the container for some reason changed back to fixed width. Now let's say to fixed content, fit content. Okay, here we go. So yeah, that's the brain twisting part of. Hey, thanks, Desiree. Thanks for joining. That's the brain twisting part of CSS layouts sometimes. Like I've coded websites for 20 years or so. It took me like 10 years to actually build like the proper mental model of some of this stuff, because it's by necessity, it's extremely powerful, but because you can do so much with it, it just has a bunch of complexity in it. So I would recommend um, tinkering and experimenting, um, and try to get a feel for it. Because no, I mean, it's just that build like a system where you can build any layout that you want is just by necessity, where all the elements can like adjust and stretch in different ways. You can say, well, this one should always be 50% of its container width, but never more than 10. Like there's so many options that it just gets kind of complicated. um, and the Penpot team really tried to give you all that power, but it just means it's kind of like you have a bunch of buttons, and you need to know how all these elements relate to each other. Like if every element has its own rules about how big or small it should be, and then the container also has some rules, you kind of need to know how all these rules interact with each other. Absolutely, that is a super powerful thing about this. So yeah, I'm not sure I have a good example here in Penpot, and it would probably take more than 2 minutes to set something up. But if and I think they kind of show the example here on the Figma homepage. You can go back to that one. So in this example here, you see this designer dragging around some, like at the beginning of this video, you see the designer drag around some, like these little sliders. And then you can see, the container adjusts, the image in itself, it gets bigger. So it's like you get away from manually placing things and saying, I want this to be over here and I want this to be this tall, and like making things bigger and smaller, you end up just kind of setting rules for things, right? And then the things automatically find their correct placement and their correct size, and the things inside those things then find their own adjust accordingly. But it's a it's kind of very indirect way of designing. But that's how HTML, that's how all of these interfaces are set up, um, out of necessity, because every screen is a different size, or like there are many different screen sizes, and they just have to be very, very responsive. Yeah, we're not. It's not like, drawing on a canvas with a brush where you're like, I want green here, green is here. Like, I'm setting up rules, and green should be 10% of the height of the screen. And it's like, just very different beast. Um, so if you want to dig in a little bit deeper, Penpot has a great learning center, and there are a bunch of videos around this auto layout stuff. I really, really recommend learning these things. For UI design, it is pretty important. And once you kind of internalize a little bit, it is a very smooth workflow. So you have these quick start things here. You have guides. There's like a wireframing video. Like I've seen some of her videos here, prototyping videos, flexible layouts. You have an introduction to flex and grid layouts. Um, those are really good usually. Um, you have videos about color palettes and libraries and use all this stuff. So yeah, I would definitely recommend hopping into those. Um, they also have a let me share some of those links here as we kind of wrap up. So here's the Learning Center. Then they work completely in the open. You can see some of their roadmap, what's coming up. Big thing that I'm super excited about is that performance improvement. You can also give them feedback. They're super friendly. And they also have a user guide here. So if you have questions around, how layers work, how prototypes work, how teams are organized, all of this stuff, Learning Center and User Guide are probably a very good starting points. So I would take a look at those. Yeah, and we do, in the design fund, we have this open design track. So if this is like a nice incentive to really figure Penpot out, I think it'd be awesome to see some projects take that route. It's a designathon hackathon thing. We're not. It's not all about perfection. It's about tinkering, experimenting with things, learning something new. This is one route you may take. Sorry, you'd like to give the team feedback? Yeah. Mhm. Yeah, I'm the same. It's like you after you use a tool for a while, you just kind of you don't even think, you just know where things are. It becomes intuitive, right? And then switching, you kind of need to rework your muscle memory. So here's something that I would really love to see. Since you mentioned Figma, Figma has amazing tools, right? They have these shared libraries. They also have branching and merging, which is great. I mean, that's what we want in open source. We want, let's say, 2 or 3 people to maintain the Bitcoin UI kit, and then another 20 people, they can propose changes. And then the maintainers can say, like, cool, yeah, that changed great. Let's add it in. And it kind of does it. However, with Figma, all of these are behind very, very pricey plans. So with Penpot, there we have a potential to have something that we can actually use in open source. Because for the Bitcoin UI kit, the Figma versions, for example, I'm not using anything, any feature that would require a paid account, because that would be pretty exclusive then. But if Penpot kind of catches up a bit and we get some of these other features, I think there's some really big benefits then in terms of making this uh, more accessible. So I have my fingers so crossed that we get there. Mhm. Yeah, that's the big performance update that they're working on. It was interesting. I met some of the Penpot team at FOSS Backstage last year, and yeah, they were like aware of Bitcoin design, and they were aware of the feedback, and they said, yeah, we totally get your feedback. We actually hired someone who just worked on performance based on your feedback. So it was cool to hear. So yeah, fingers crossed. And the more if we start using it more, it's really encouraging for the team, um, the community. So um, short-term pain, long-term gain. So I think about it. But yeah, if you want to do another workshop, or if you end up using the tool, you have questions, we could do another hands-on session. If, let's say, you work on design, you just can't get the auto layout or tokens or whatever to work, I'm happy to help out as well. You can just let me know. Mhm. Yeah. I don't think it will take a lot of time. I would really just start with watch a video or two, and then do some simple examples, right? Like make some buttons, put them in a layout, like resize things, and see how the layout, when you apply different layouts, see how things move around to kind of get a feel for it. But yeah, I think the videos are actually really good. Um, those YouTube videos are a good starting point. Today or a year ago when you last tested it? Okay. Mhm. Yeah. What didn't work for you today? Yeah, I saw that too. I was wondering, maybe those components are just not set up properly. I'd like I think that would be very worth testing, to do some very targeted tests to see if it's to see actually what the problem was. Was it that there were 5 people in this file and it's just too much, and with 1, 2 people it's totally smooth? Is it that those components are not set up correctly? Like, is it a Penpot issue, or is it just kind of how we use it issue? I'd love to get the ground of that, um, figure out what it is. Yeah, well, some simple tests, I think. So, I mean, I would just, so for example, I would just build, let's say this is the component here that I broke with the menu item. I mean, it's not that complex, right? You have a background, you have 3 circles, you have 3 text fields. I would just build that myself, and see if I can resize it, if I can change the text, and if I then put that component in another container and just resize it, just kind of screw with it a little bit and see if it falls apart. Yeah, just try to perfect one thing and just kind of mess with it and see what happens. Um, yeah, I don't know. So when let me see, can I actually go to my here this Open Design Guide? So I'm switching over to the Open Design Guide presentation. So, there's a lot of stuff in here, and it worked great. This is the whole presentation that we did, set up a prototype. You know, yeah. So that worked out totally great. Sometimes we were two people working on here. Um, but yeah, I mean, I think there's a decent amount of. We also use components here for, I think, some of these headers, and yeah, these, like this left side of those slides. That's a component, and it worked great. Like nothing broke. Everything resized correctly, so it was fine. Yeah, maybe we just managed to break it here in this session. Yeah. Mhm. Yeah, I think yeah, when someone made these Penpot ports uh, of the Bitcoin UI kit, I was also very hopeful that we can just switch over and start using it. But then the prototypes were the component system wasn't quite ready. The design tokens were missing, so it was just really really hard to kind of maintain it. But I'm really hoping that we'll get there very soon. I'm very excited about this performance improvement, and then I do hope that we can switch a whole bunch of stuff over, and then um, yeah, just really have an open source tool that we can collaborate uh, openly together. Because I'm a maintainer of the Bitcoin Core app design file, of the Bitcoin UI kit, the Bitcoin icons file, and I basically have to do it by myself because as soon as I want another maintainer on each of those individual files, I have to pay like $30 per month per file, uh, and I'm just not going to do that. So yeah, I'm hopeful. Things just kind of take their time in open source. Yeah. Yeah. All right. No, if you keep tinkering with things, I'd love to hear it. But I think otherwise, I would wrap it up for today. Whereas Katie, Johannes, Jason, any other questions or thoughts? Mhm. Mhm. Awesome. Thanks for the feedback. It's good to hear. I'm glad it was useful. Yeah, and as Veronica said, there's a learning curve. I don't expect anyone to just kind of drop everything and start using this tomorrow for everything. But the design one's good time to experiment with it. And I also, for FOSS Backstage, I was like, I'm presenting at an open source conference. I need to use open source tools. So it was worked out great for that. Um, so yeah, maybe think about it, some places where you may want to use this and just kind of get comfortable and see where it takes you. And then I would just wrap this up, and I would just say thank you for joining, and we can do another one if you'd like, or I'd love to see some of you use Penpot in the Designathon if you'd like. I'll stop the recording. Thanks for tuning in.